my cabinet colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here to celebrate and honor the contributions made by our community volunteers who have worked tirelessly with us to keep Singapore safe and secure. This appreciation lunch marks its 20th anniversary this year. And I'm very glad to see Mr. Wong Kan Seng here today with us too. Because this started when he was at MHA. Singapore was facing challenging times then, and it's because of the steady leadership of Mr. Wong and his team that helped to keep all of us safe. So thank you very much, Kan Seng. As all of you would remember, after 9/11, we took actions to dismantle the local Jamal Islamiyah network. The JI operatives had been planning to carry out major attacks in Singapore, targeting military installations and MRT stations. They were close to carrying out their plans. They had conducted recce's and they were procuring materials to make bombs. And thankfully, ISD managed to stop them. But we also knew that security operations alone would not address the roots of the problem, which is a dangerous misinterpretation of Islam that fueled their extremism. So we were very fortunate that Ustaz Hasbi, who is here with us, and the late Ustaz Ali bravely stepped forward to help. It was a bold and unprecedented approach to rehabilitation, and the outcomes were uncertain. They risked being criticized, being branded as munafiq or hypocrites for working with the government. Likewise, volunteers from the Interagency Aftercare Group persevered despite hostile reactions when they first reached out to the families of detainees. But they carried on because they believed this was the right thing to do. And because of all of your courage and conviction, Singapore is safer today. So I want to pay tribute to Ustaz Hasbi and the late Ustaz Ali. I also want to acknowledge many of the pioneer community volunteers who stepped forward to help us in our hour of need. Many of you are here. Thank you very much for your efforts and contributions. Of course, since these last 20 years, this annual appreciation lunch has grown in size and spirit. More volunteers have come forward to help those who have succumbed to radical ideologies. You provide not just counseling, you also provide hope and practical support to the families of detainees. Your help keeps families together so that when a detainee is eventually released, they have the support they need to start life afresh. And your efforts have borne fruit. Of the 150 Singaporeans who were dealt with under the ISA since 2002, close to 85% have made progress. Many have reintegrated into society. Some have started businesses. Others pursued higher education and found meaningful careers. And their families too are thriving and doing well. Many of their children are doing well in school and finding success in their own pathways. Through your hard work, you have shown what it means to live in an inclusive Singapore where everyone can hope for a better future. So thank you, everyone, for all your efforts and service. The threat we face has evolved since those early days. Digital and online technology has made extremist propaganda more accessible than before. And just look at what's happening around us today, or most recently at the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk in America. It shows how easy online radicalization can translate into real-world harm. So acts of violence that were once rare have become disturbingly more commonplace. Even in Singapore, ISD has had to deal with cases where individuals not only get radicalized online through the internet, but they even use AI chatbots to draft manifestos for armed struggle or to find instructions to make weapons, including 3D printed guns. Furthermore, the range of extremist ideologies has widened. It's no longer limited to religious extremism. We see people drawn to neo-Nazi movements or the incel movement. Incel is involuntarily celibate. That means people, usually men, who are unable to find partners despite wanting them. It's a description of one's personal circumstance, but it's evolved into a subculture known for its extreme resentment and hostility towards women. And the recent cases we've picked up are very telling. You would have read the news that earlier this week, ISD announced 2 Singaporeans were issued restriction orders under the ISA. In the first case, a 30-year-old aspired to take up arms for Turkey in its territorial disputes with Greece. His motives were not religiously motivated. Instead, it was fueled by personal grievances and his desire to find meaning in overthrowing what he thought were oppressive regimes. The second case was just a 14-year-old, but he had been self-radicalized by a mix of extremist ideologies. He was an ISIS, or he is an ISIS supporter, professes to be an ISIS supporter. He also subscribes to far-right extremism and identifies himself as an incel. So a very toxic mix of different extremist ideologies. Both are young, and that is very worrying for us because we are seeing more cases of young Singaporeans succumbing to extremist ideologies. More than 2/3 of them emerged in just the last 5 years alone. So how should we respond to these very worrying trends? First, we will deepen international cooperation because terrorism knows no borders. We must work together, exchanging intelligence, expertise, and resources to disrupt terrorist plans. In fact, many countries are keen to learn from our rehabilitation approach, so we will share our experience and learn from theirs as well. And together, we can and we must find ways to make the world safer. Second, we will remain vigilant. In our fight against extremism, we can never let our guard down. External groups like ISIS continue to inspire followers. Domestically, self-radicalisation is on the rise, as I described just now. Our security agencies will do their best to detect and to neutralize threats. But every Singaporean also has a role to play. If you see a loved one succumbing to extremist ideologies, please help to report them early so that they can receive help. I know it's not easy. I too have friends who have gone astray. I knew them when they were younger, and I would never have expected them to turn to extremism. But these things can happen, and when they do, we want to be able to act early and help them get back on the right path as soon as possible. And that leads to my third point, which is we will strengthen our rehabilitation capabilities. In fact, now we have to go beyond Islamic religious counseling because Singaporeans are succumbing to a wider range of extremist ideologies. We have already started to do this. For example, we have developed a suite of interventions specifically tailored for self-radicalized young people. They include mentorship, cyber wellness, and programs to improve their social skills. And we are seeing some positive results. You may recall the case of a 16-year-old Singaporean Christian youth who was detained in December 2020 after he was radicalized by online far-right extremist propaganda and had planned to attack Muslims at 2 mosques. He received counseling from a Christian pastor who taught him the virtues of nonviolence and to appreciate interfaith harmony. At the same time, he had 2 mentors, including a volunteer from the RRG, who provided him with social support and guidance. All this helped to change his way of thinking, and he was released in January last year and is now continuing his studies in an institute of higher learning. But finally, and most importantly, we must continue to build strong and cohesive bonds among Singaporeans. Self-radicalisation often preys on those who feel more isolated. Then they turn to online sources to find meaning, and they stumble upon extremist materials, and then they get led astray. To counter that, we have to foster belonging, human connections, and trust. And that's why we've worked so hard over these last 60 years to strengthen ties across race and religion. This remains vital. But we must also guard against new divides, like those arising from social and economic inequality, because left unchecked, they can weaken trust and erode the cohesion we have painstakingly built up. So we must continue to do our best to strengthen the bonds between Singaporeans. The more united we are, the more resilient we'll be against these divisive forces. On the whole, Singapore is in a far better position compared to many other countries. We are fortunate to stand on the strong foundations built by our pioneers. My team and I in the government are fully committed to deepening this reservoir of trust and keeping Singapore secure and united, even as we embrace our diversity. This has always been the secret to Singapore's success, that from many races, languages, and religion, we become more united as one people. This responsibility does not lie with the government alone, but also with all of us. It is our collective responsibility. So I look forward to working closely with all of you on this shared objective to keep Singapore safe, secure, and harmonious for many more generations to come. Thank you once again, and please enjoy the lunch today.